The sun rises over Pacific Palisades as an aging but still imposing figure moves through his morning routine. The hands that once hoisted golden trophies now grip a pen, scratching wisdom into a journal. At 78, Arnold Schwarzenegger has lived enough lives for 10 men. Bodybuilding champion, Hollywood icon, two-term governor, environmental crusader. But what happens when the man who built his legend on being unstoppable finally confronts his own mortality? How does someone who conquered every arena he entered face the one opponent no one defeats? What becomes of a physical specimen when the body that made him famous begins to fail? Stay with me as we examine the extraordinary final chapter of the Austrian Oak story and discover why his greatest legacy may be unfolding right now. Today, as Arnold Schwarzenegger approaches his 8th decade, he finds himself in a position few would have predicted during his muscle-bound prime. The man whose career was built on projecting invincibility now moves more carefully through life, his public appearances more measured, his focus increasingly on legacy rather than conquest. Recent interviews reveal a reflective Arnold, one who speaks openly about heart surgeries, aging, and the perspective that only comes with time. His latest venture, launched in September 2024, is a comprehensive foundation merging his environmental work with youth education programs, committing over $25 million of his personal fortune to what he calls his final mission. The organization aims to provide 100,000 at-risk students with after-school fitness programs while simultaneously funding clean energy initiatives in underserved communities. "I'm not building my body anymore," he told the New York Times in August 2025. "I'm building what I'll leave behind." But this new chapter hasn't come without struggle. In March 2025, Schwarzenegger was hospitalized for complications related to his aortic valve, marking his 4th cardiac procedure since 2018. Images of the action hero in a hospital bed circulated widely, shocking fans accustomed to seeing him as indestructible. Yet within weeks, he was back on social media, filming himself doing modified exercises from his home gym, modeling the resilience that has defined his career. His weekly newsletter, reaching over 5 million subscribers, has transformed from fitness advice to philosophical musings on mortality, service, and finding meaning in life's final chapters. Each edition combines practical wisdom with vulnerability rarely seen from male celebrities of his generation. "I used to think strength was never showing weakness," he wrote in April 2025, shortly after his hospitalization. "Now I understand strength is acknowledging your limitations and working within them to still make an impact." For a new generation discovering Schwarzenegger through viral newsletters, podcast appearances, and environmental advocacy rather than flexing pectorals or terminating enemies, the question becomes, how did this immigrant with an unpronounceable name transform himself so many times? And what can his journey teach us about aging, adaptation, and facing our final acts with grace? Let's rewind to the moment it all began. July 30th, 1947, in the small village of Thal, Austria. A post-World War II. Europe, still recovering from devastation, serves as the unlikely birthplace for one of America's most recognizable icons. Born to Gustav Schwarzenegger, a local police chief with a strict military bearing, and Aurelia, a homemaker, young Arnold grew up in a household without plumbing or basic amenities that Americans took for granted. "We had no refrigerator, no phone, no bathroom," Schwarzenegger has recalled. "To take a shower, we had to go to the local well and pump the water, then heat it on the stove." This austere beginning would later inform his appreciation for American abundance and opportunity. The shadow of World War II hung heavy over Schwarzenegger's childhood. His father, who had served in the German army, brought the war's psychological trauma home. Arnold would later describe him as a man who drank too much and came home angry, inflicting harsh discipline on his 2 sons. This complicated relationship would shape much of Arnold's drive to escape Austria and forge his own path. By age 15, Arnold had discovered the one thing that would transform his life: weightlifting. Initially drawn to soccer, the teenager's first encounter with a barbell redirected his ambitions permanently. "I knew immediately this was my path to escape Austria," he would later write. "When I saw a magazine with Reg Park on the cover as Hercules, I saw my future." Working out in unheated gyms and following training protocols he barely understood, the determined teenager built his body with monastic dedication. His parents worried he had lost his mind, plastering his bedroom walls with images of half-naked bodybuilders. His father encouraged more traditional pursuits, pushing Arnold toward a military career or trade work. But the young Austrian had glimpsed something his family couldn't see: a ticket to America through his biceps. The teenage Arnold created a makeshift gym in his home, collecting rusty weights and constructing crude equipment. He trained in winter temperatures that sometimes dropped below freezing, his breath visible in the unheated room. Friends from this period recall his singular focus, often training for hours while others socialized or pursued more conventional hobbies. By 20, after completing his mandatory military service, Schwarzenegger won his first major title as Mr. Universe. The victory confirmed his path and set him on a collision course with the country that would become his home. This earliest chapter reveals the template for Schwarzenegger's lifelong approach: identify a goal, pursue it with relentless discipline, and refuse to acknowledge limitations others might accept. The boy from the Austrian hills was already demonstrating the mindset that would carry him to unprecedented heights in multiple fields. When Arnold arrived in America in 1968, he brought little more than his trophies and an accent thick enough to cut with a knife. What he lacked in English fluency, he made up for in confidence and vision. While training at Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, California, the young immigrant connected with Joe Weider, the godfather of bodybuilding, who recognized the Austrian's potential as both an athlete and a personality. The Venice Beach of the late 1960s was the perfect incubator for Schwarzenegger's ambitions, a sun-soaked crossroads of counterculture and physical culture. The open-air muscle beach where bodybuilders trained became Arnold's classroom and stage. Fellow bodybuilders from this era remember his strategic mind as much as his physique. Arnold would psychologically dismantle competitors before they ever stepped on stage, recalls former training partner Franco Columbu. He'd compliment a weak body part until they overcompensated in training, neglecting their strengths. Between 1970 and 1975, Schwarzenegger dominated the bodybuilding world, winning Mr. Olympia 6 consecutive times and transforming the niche sport into something approaching mainstream awareness. His approach to bodybuilding was revolutionary, treating his body as a sculpture to be crafted rather than merely muscles to be enlarged. His emphasis on proportion, symmetry, and aesthetic lines changed the standards of the sport. The first truly transcendent moment came in 1977 with the release of Pumping Iron, the docudrama that introduced Arnold's charisma to America. The film captured his psychological warfare with competitors, his unapologetic ambition, and the now famous declaration that lifting weights felt like coming. America was fascinated by this oversized personality with the cartoon muscles and thick accent. Pumping Iron did what no amount of trophies could do, explains sports historian Thomas Weller. It transformed Schwarzenegger from an athlete into a character America wanted to know better. Hollywood took notice. After a few false starts, director John Milius cast Arnold in Conan the Barbarian in 1982. The sword and sorcery epic grossed over $130 million worldwide and proved this muscle-bound foreigner with the unpronounceable name could carry a film. But it was 1984's The Terminator that changed everything. Director James Cameron initially wanted Arnold to play the hero, Kyle Reese, but during their meeting, Schwarzenegger kept talking about how the Terminator should be played. Cameron, intrigued by the Austrian's mechanical precision and physical presence, made the pivotal decision to cast him as the villain instead. With just 17 lines in the entire film, Schwarzenegger created one of cinema's most iconic characters. The role perfectly leveraged Arnold's limitations. His stiff movement, emotionless delivery, and mechanical accent became assets rather than liabilities. I'll Be Back entered the American lexicon, and Arnold's transition from bodybuilder to bona fide movie star was complete. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Schwarzenegger dominated the box office with hits like Predator, Total Recall, True Lies, and the Terminator sequels, commanding $25 million per picture at his peak. His films collectively grossed over $4 billion worldwide, making him one of Hollywood's most bankable stars despite his limited range and persistent accent. The secret to his Hollywood success wasn't just his distinctive physicality, but his savvy approach to image management. Unlike many action stars, Schwarzenegger wasn't afraid to poke fun at his persona, taking roles in comedies like Twins and Kindergarten Cop that played against type. This self-awareness endeared him to audiences and extended his career beyond the typical shelf life of action heroes. Behind the scenes, Schwarzenegger was building his business empire with the same strategic focus he brought to bodybuilding. Real estate investments made during his early Hollywood years grew into a portfolio worth hundreds of millions. "I never depended on my movie career for money," he explained to Forbes in 1990. "That way, I could always choose roles for strategic reasons, not financial necessity." By the late 1990s, approaching 50, Schwarzenegger had achieved what his boyhood self could barely imagine: wealth, fame, marriage to Kennedy family member Maria Shriver, 4 children, and a place in America's cultural firmament. For most immigrants, this would represent the pinnacle of the American dream. For Arnold, it was merely the end of Act 2. Here's where it gets complicated. In 2003, California faced a perfect political storm. Energy crisis blackouts, budget deficits, and voter frustration with Governor Gray Davis created the conditions for only the second successful gubernatorial recall election in American history. Into this chaotic moment stepped Schwarzenegger, announcing his candidacy for governor on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno in a move that shocked both Hollywood and Sacramento. The timing of his announcement, just weeks after the release of Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, led many to dismiss it as a publicity stunt. Political insiders scoffed at the notion that a man famous for one-liners and biceps could navigate California's complex political landscape. The Los Angeles Times ran the headline, "Actor's Political Aspirations, Hasta la Vista Reality." Critics underestimated both the actor's political ambitions and his appeal to a disillusioned electorate. Running as a moderate Republican who combined fiscal conservatism with social progressivism, particularly on environmental issues, Schwarzenegger positioned himself as a pragmatic outsider untainted by partisan gridlock. His campaign slogan, "Bring California Back," resonated with voters seeking change. On October 7, 2003, over 4.2 million Californians voted for Schwarzenegger, handing him a decisive victory with 48.6% of the vote in a field of 135 candidates. The Governator was born. The transition from movie set to governor's mansion proved challenging. According to staff members from his early administration, Schwarzenegger initially approached governance with the same commanding style that worked in Hollywood. He expected to say something and have it happen immediately, recalls former Chief of Staff Patricia Wilson. The reality of legislative compromise and constitutional constraints was a rude awakening. Schwarzenegger's 7 years in Sacramento, 2003 to 2011, produced a mixed legacy. His early popularity and bold initiatives, including environmental legislation that made California a leader in addressing climate change, gradually gave way to the realities of governing a complex state during economic turmoil. By the end of his second term, his approval rating had plummeted to 23%, hampered by the 2008 financial crisis and budget battles with the state legislature. His signature achievement, the California Global Warming Solutions Act, AB 32, set the state on course for dramatic reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. The bill required California to reduce emissions to 1990 levels by 2020, a target the state met 4 years early. This legislation positioned California as a global leader on climate policy and demonstrated Schwarzenegger's willingness to challenge his own party's orthodoxy on environmental issues, yet even critics acknowledge his environmental accomplishments. The landmark Global Warming Solutions Act of 2006, AB 32, set aggressive greenhouse gas reduction targets that became a model for other states. This legislation represented a direct challenge to the Bush administration's climate policies and positioned California as a global leader in environmental regulation. Arnold understood the environment wasn't a left or right issue, explains former California EPA Secretary Terry Tamminen. He saw it as the ultimate legacy issue, something that transcended political divisions. Less successful were his attempts at structural reform. His ambitious Year of Reform agenda in 2005 included 4 ballot initiatives that would have dramatically reshaped California's political landscape. All four were defeated, representing the first major political setback for a man accustomed to winning. Former staffers described this period as a turning point, forcing Schwarzenegger to embrace compromise and coalition building rather than relying on star power and executive authority. His administration also faced criticism for its handling of the state budget. Despite campaign promises to address California's structural deficit, Schwarzenegger left office with the state facing a $25 billion shortfall. Critics point to his refusal to consider comprehensive tax reform, while defenders note the global financial crisis that decimated state revenues during his second term. As his governorship wound down, personal challenges mounted. In May 2011, just months after leaving office, Schwarzenegger and Shriver announced their separation after 25 years of marriage. The revelation that he had fathered a child with the family's longtime housekeeper, Mildred Baina, created a scandal that threatened to permanently damage his reputation. His son, Joseph Baina, had been born in 1997, just days after Shriver gave birth to the couple's fourth child. For a man who had meticulously constructed his public image, this private failing created the most serious crisis of his career. "It was my biggest personal failure," he would later write in his autobiography, Total Recall. "Maria and I have 4 wonderful kids together, and I will always be there for them. I understand and deserve the feelings of anger and disappointment among my family and friends." The scandal threatened to define Schwarzenegger's post-gubernatorial life, with tabloid coverage overwhelming any discussion of his political accomplishments. For the first time in his career, the master of reinvention seemed at a loss for how to reframe his narrative. The public narrative around Schwarzenegger often focuses on his marriages, movies, or political record. What receives less attention is his decades-long battle with heart disease, a condition with roots in both genetics and his earlier lifestyle choices. According to medical records and Schwarzenegger's own statements, he underwent his first heart surgery in 1997 to replace a defective aortic valve. Though he publicly described it as a congenital condition, cardiologists note that his years of steroid use during his bodybuilding career likely contributed to his cardiac issues. While Schwarzenegger has never publicly confirmed steroid use, he has acknowledged the widespread practice in bodybuilding during his competitive years. Sports medicine experts point out that anabolic steroids can cause left ventricular hypertrophy, an enlargement and thickening of the heart's main pumping chamber, which increases the risk of heart valve problems later in life. The timing of his first surgery is notable, occurring during the filming of Batman and Robin, where Schwarzenegger played Mr. Freeze. Production records indicate filming was briefly paused, though the official explanation involves scheduling conflicts rather than health concerns. This pattern of downplaying health issues would continue throughout his career. In 2018, at age 70, he underwent emergency open-heart surgery when a minimally invasive procedure to replace that same valve encountered complications. The operation was more serious than initially reported, with Schwarzenegger later revealing he almost died during the risky procedure. Medical records confirm he spent several days in intensive care, with his recovery taking significantly longer than his team acknowledged at the time. His first words upon waking, according to attending physician Dr. Raphael Cohen, maintained his trademark humor despite the gravity of the situation. "I'm back," he reportedly said, playing on his famous catchphrase. This resilience in the face of mortality has become a defining characteristic of his later years. In 2020, he underwent another procedure to replace his aortic valve again, followed by a pacemaker implantation in early 2023. These surgeries, documented in medical statements from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, stand in stark contrast to the invincible image Schwarzenegger projected throughout his career. His March 2025 hospitalization represented his most serious health crisis yet. According to hospital records, Schwarzenegger experienced symptoms of heart failure and required intensive intervention. For several days, his prognosis remained uncertain, with family members gathering at his bedside. Though his team downplayed the severity, medical documents indicate the 78-year-old faced genuine risk. Remarkably, Schwarzenegger has approached these health challenges with the same discipline he once applied to bodybuilding and politics. His recovery regimen includes daily physical therapy, a plant-based diet, a significant departure from his meat-heavy bodybuilding nutrition and carefully monitored exercise. His doctors confirm he has followed their protocols with military precision, applying his famous work ethic to the maintenance of his aging body. Working out is no longer about looking good, he told Men's Health in January 2025. It's about giving my heart every advantage. I treat my heart like my most important relationship now. This healthcare journey has transformed Schwarzenegger into an unexpected advocate for men's health awareness. His candid discussions about his surgeries, documented in his newsletter and podcast appearances, have encouraged older men to seek preventive care. Cardiologists report what they call the Schwarzenegger effect, an uptick in male patients scheduling heart screenings after the action. Star discusses his own experiences. Perhaps most poignant is how Schwarzenegger has incorporated his health struggles into his public identity, treating his scars not as signs of weakness, but as badges of survival. In a viral video from August 2024, he removed his shirt during a speech at a heart health fundraiser, pointing to the prominent surgical scar bisecting his chest. "This is not something to hide," he told the audience. "This is proof that modern medicine is amazing and that asking for help is strength, not weakness." Beyond the public battles with health and politics lies a more nuanced portrait of the aging icon. Close friends describe a Schwarzenegger who has grown increasingly reflective and philosophical in his late 70s. His Pacific Palisades home, once a showcase of trophies and movie memorabilia, has been redesigned to accommodate his changing needs while maintaining his trademark touches of extravagance, including space for his pet miniature pony Whiskey and donkey Lulu, who famously roam freely through parts of his house. The menagerie of animals that share Schwarzenegger's home has become something of an internet sensation. Social media videos showing the former governor feeding his pets breakfast at his kitchen table have garnered millions of views. This softer animal-loving side represents a stark contrast to his action hero persona, offering glimpses of a man comfortable with contradiction and complexity in his final act. According to those in his inner circle, Schwarzenegger starts each day at 5 a.m., maintaining a ritual that has barely changed in decades. However, where he once began with heavy weight training, he now focuses on mobility work and cardiovascular health. His famous competitive spirit now manifests in different ways, challenging younger staffers to chess matches and card games that he attacks with the same intensity he once brought to the Mr. Olympia stage. His reading habits have evolved dramatically as well. Always a proponent of self-improvement, the younger Schwarzenegger favored business and motivational literature. Now his bookshelves overflow with philosophy, history, and memoirs. Friends report regular references to Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, whose teachings on mortality and virtue resonate with his current circumstances. "He's become something of an amateur philosopher," explains longtime friend and former training partner Franco Columbu. "He's always quoting these ancient Romans and Greeks. I tell him, 'Arnold, you're thinking too much,' and he says thinking is all he has left when his body won't do what it used to." Perhaps the most significant change has been his relationship with his children. Following the 2011 separation from Shriver, Schwarzenegger embarked on a long journey of reconciliation with his family. Today, all 5 of his children, Catherine, Christina, Patrick, Christopher, and Joseph, maintain relationships with their father, though sources close to the family describe these connections as works in progress rather than fully healed. Catherine Schwarzenegger Pratt, his eldest daughter, has followed her father into public life as an author and media personality. Her books on forgiveness and faith suggest the complex emotional work the family has undertaken. Patrick has pursued acting while developing business interests in fitness and nutrition that echo his father's entrepreneurial spirit. Christina and Christopher have remained more private, though they appear at family gatherings captured in occasional social media posts. The most dramatic evolution has been with Joseph Baena, the son whose existence remained secret for the first 14 years of his life. Now 27 and bearing a striking resemblance to his father, Joseph has established himself as a real estate agent and actor. Their relationship, initially fraught with complications, has developed into one of Schwarzenegger's closest family bonds. Recent social media posts show them working out together, with the elder Schwarzenegger offering guidance on both business and fitness. The thing about my dad is he never quits trying to make things better, Katherine Schwarzenegger Pratt told People magazine in June 2025. Even when relationships seem broken beyond repair, he just keeps showing up year after year. This persistence extends to his relationship with Shriver as well. Though they finalized their divorce in 2021 after a decade of legal proceedings, the two have achieved what friends describe as a respectful coexistence centered around their shared children and grandchildren. At family gatherings, including the recent christening of Catherine's second child with actor Chris Pratt, Schwarzenegger and Shriver maintained a cordial distance while celebrating their expanding family. Those closest to Schwarzenegger note that his approach to reconciliation mirrors the discipline he brought to bodybuilding and politics, steady incremental effort applied consistently over time. Arnold doesn't believe in quick fixes for relationships, explains Daniel Ketchel, his longtime chief of staff. He told me once, building back trust is like rehabilitation after surgery. You can't rush it, you can't skip steps, and you have to accept there will be pain in the process. Fast forward to September 4th, 2025. Arnold Schwarzenegger stands at a podium in Los Angeles, officially launching the expanded Schwarzenegger Climate Initiative with a $25 million personal contribution. Despite moving more carefully than the dynamo of earlier decades, his voice remains commanding as he outlines ambitious goals: carbon-neutral schools in disadvantaged communities, scholarships for environmental science students, and a global youth fitness campaign aimed at combating childhood obesity. The audience includes an unusual mix of environmental activists, bodybuilding legends, Hollywood executives, and political figures from both parties, a visual representation of the disparate worlds Schwarzenegger has inhabited throughout his extraordinary career. Former California Governor Gavin Newsom, once a political rival, introduces him with genuine admiration, noting that Arnold's vision on climate transcended partisanship before most of us understood the urgency. The initiative represents the culmination of work that began during his governorship, but has expanded in scope and ambition. Public records show the foundation has already secured matching funds from tech industry partners, bringing total funding to over $50 million for its first 3 years of operation. The foundation's headquarters in Los Angeles employs a staff of 45, including environmental scientists, education specialists, and community organizers. Their first major project, retrofitting 100 public schools in low-income communities with solar power and energy-efficient systems, is scheduled to begin construction in January 2026. According to Foundation documents, these improvements are projected to save each school approximately $75,000 annually in energy costs while reducing carbon emissions by 75%. When I die, and it could be tomorrow or it could be in 10 years, I want them to say he used every minute, Schwarzenegger tells the assembled crowd. He came with nothing. He took nothing with him, but he changed everything he touched. His health, while stabilized following his March hospitalization, remains a constant concern, according to his medical team, led by cardiologist Dr. Nisha Patel at Cedars-Sinai. Schwarzenegger requires ongoing monitoring and has adapted to a regimen of medications that manage his condition. His exercise routine has been modified to accommodate his cardiac limitations, focusing on controlled movement rather than the intense training of his youth. Despite these challenges, Schwarzenegger maintains an active schedule that would exhaust many younger individuals. His calendar for the remainder of 2025 includes speaking engagements at climate conferences in Dubai and Berlin, the annual Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio, now in its 37th year, and filming commitments for his documentary series. Professionally, Schwarzenegger has pivoted to roles that suit his age and physical capabilities. His most recent project, a documentary series examining climate solutions around the world, completed filming in early 2025 and is scheduled for release on Netflix in November. The production allowed him to travel extensively, but incorporated medical staff and frequent rest periods to accommodate his health needs. The documentary, titled No Fate But What We Make, borrowing a phrase from his Terminator films, follows Schwarzenegger as he visits innovative climate projects across 6 continents. Advanced reviews praise the series for its optimistic approach to environmental challenges and Schwarzenegger's accessible explanations of complex climate science. His business empire, once centered on real estate and fitness enterprises, has evolved toward investment in sustainability startups. SEC filings reveal Schwarzenegger's investment company has taken positions in companies developing carbon capture technology, plant-based proteins, and energy storage solutions. These investments align with both his environmental advocacy and his long-term financial strategy. "I'm betting on the future I want to see," he explained at a recent business conference. "The old energy economy is terminating itself. The smart money is on clean technologies that solve problems rather than create them." Looking ahead, Schwarzenegger's team has confirmed his intention to complete one final dramatic film, a project described as a meditation on mortality and redemption rather than an action vehicle. The script, currently in development with a major studio, would feature Schwarzenegger in a role specifically written to acknowledge his age and physical limitations while drawing on his iconic status. "I don't pretend anymore," he told The Hollywood Reporter in July 2025. "I am old. I have scars. I have made mistakes. Now I want to make something that shows the truth of where I am, not where I was." Industry insiders report the project has attracted A-list talent, with several major directors expressing interest in the concept. While specific details remain under wraps, sources suggest the film will incorporate elements of Schwarzenegger's actual life story while exploring themes of legacy, forgiveness, and final acts. What emerges from Arnold Schwarzenegger's extraordinary life trajectory is not merely a story of ambition and achievement, but a masterclass in reinvention and resilience. From immigrant to icon, from action hero to elder statesman, Schwarzenegger has demonstrated an almost supernatural ability to transform himself according to the moment's demands. His career defied conventional wisdom at every turn. Bodybuilders weren't supposed to become Hollywood stars. Action heroes weren't supposed to become governors. Republicans weren't supposed to be environmental champions. Yet, at each juncture, Schwarzenegger reimagined what was possible through a combination of vision, discipline, and unshakable self-belief. The immigrant narrative at the heart of his story resonates deeply in American culture. Arriving with little more than ambition and physical gifts, Schwarzenegger embodies the archetype of the self-made man. Yet, unlike many success stories that emphasize individual achievement, his later years have been characterized by service and systemic thinking. Recognition that personal success means little without broader impact. This evolution from self-focus to legacy building offers a powerful template for successful aging. Where many celebrities cling desperately to youth and relevance, Schwarzenegger has leaned into the elder statesman role, leveraging his influence toward causes that will outlive him. This pivot from personal glory to generational impact represents perhaps his most impressive transformation. Perhaps most remarkable is his late-life evolution. Where many aging celebrities retreat from public view or desperately cling to youth through surgeries and carefully controlled public appearances, Schwarzenegger has leaned into his elder statesman role with characteristic frankness. He discusses his heart surgeries, shows his scars, acknowledges his mortality, and redirects his famous determination toward causes larger than himself. The difference between Arnold and other stars of his era is his willingness to be vulnerable, explains celebrity biographer Sarah Jenkins. He's not hiding his age or health struggles. That authenticity has allowed him to connect with younger generations in ways his contemporaries cannot. His embrace of technology has facilitated this cross-generational appeal. While contemporaries struggle with social media, Schwarzenegger has built a digital presence that reaches millions. His newsletter subscribers include readers from their teens to their 90s, united by interest in his unique perspective on life's challenges. The narrative arc of Schwarzenegger's life also offers powerful lessons on failure and redemption. His personal failures, particularly the infidelity that ended his marriage, represent the kind of midlife crisis that derails many successful men. Yet, rather than denial or victimhood, his approach to these failures has been characterized by accountability and patient reconstruction of damaged relationships. This final chapter of Schwarzenegger's life offers a powerful template for aging in public. Neither defined by past glories nor diminished by present limitations, he has found purpose in legacy-building projects that extend his influence beyond his lifetime. In doing so, he provides a roadmap for anyone entering life's final act. Focus outward, build for the future, acknowledge vulnerability, and maintain the discipline that defined earlier successes. The immigrant boy who once plastered his walls with images of American success has become an archetype of the American story itself, complete with triumphs, failures, scandals, comebacks, and ultimately, the wisdom that comes only through living every chapter fully. As we watch Schwarzenegger navigate this final phase with the same intensity he brought to every previous incarnation, we're reminded that our last acts may indeed be our most meaningful. The measure of a life isn't found in moments of peak strength or fame, but in how we face our inevitable decline, with fear or with purpose, with denial or with dignity. In Arnold's case, the answer seems clear. He's finishing as he began, on his own terms, eyes fixed firmly forward, determined to maximize every moment he has left. The man who once told audiences, "I'll be back," now focuses on what will remain when he's gone. A legacy of environmental action, public service, and the power of reinvention against all odds. Like and subscribe to see our next deep dive into the legends who shaped our culture. And remember Arnold's own words, "Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength."